We got several big trials right now. This one in California, the celebrity hairstylist murder trial for Monica Sementilli. So she's accused of killing her famous hairstylist husband, Fabio Sementilli, over lust and greed. We're going to get you caught up on the very best moments from opening statements. And let me tell you, this is quite a salacious case. Court TV anchor Vinnie Politan gives us the backdrop.
My uncle Fabio Sementilli had been murdered in his own backyard. He was stabbed to death. And his wife, Monica Sementilli, was screaming through the phone. They killed him.
Fabio Sementilli was a celebrated hairdresser and vice president of education at Coty, one of the world's largest beauty companies.
I've traveled the world, and I've been so fortunate. I don't deserve any of this.
Fabio Sementilli's life was cut short at 49 years old on January 23, 2017. The father of three was stabbed while watching TV in his backyard. According to court documents, the scene was staged to look like a burglary, but prosecutors say it was his wife, Monica Sementilli, who orchestrated the murder, and her lover, Robert Baker, killed him with the help of Christopher Austin. Austin has pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Sementilli and Baker were charged with murder and conspiracy to commit a crime. Baker pleaded no contest in July of 2023.
You further admit as to that count the allegation under Penal Section 1222, Section B, Section 1, that you personally used a deadly and dangerous weapon, to wit, a knife, in the commission of this offense. Yes.
Baker, a convicted sex offender, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He says Monica Sementilli, who pleaded not guilty, is innocent.
We are confident that Robert Baker's guilty pleas and his truthful testimony will finally establish once and for all that Monica Sementilli had nothing to do with the planning or the murder of Fabio Sementilli, her husband.
Investigators say their motive was to collect on Fabio's $1.6 million life insurance policy. His death sent shockwaves through the hair industry and his family.
He was a blessing and a positive influence to people around the world.
A hardworking, self-made man who loved and treasured his family more than anything, who deserved better than to be betrayed by the person he loved and murdered in his own home.
Sementilli was known for his big personality and motivational advice. Here he is in 2015 telling American Salon how he would like to be remembered.
I think about this a lot, you know, and you kind of sit in the backyard, and I say to myself, you know, what do I want to be remembered for? Family, my friendship, my real close friendships. And then I think the third is, for me, all the stylists that I've touched in my life.
All right, that was Vinnie Politan reporting. So that's the background of this case. That's how we got here. This case opened up on Friday, and what you're about to see has not been aired yet on Court TV. The opening statements. We want to play some of the very best moments for you. We've put them together. Here we go.
Lust, greed, betrayal. That's what this case is about. This is a homicide case that's going to look an awful lot like a Hollywood movie, except that it's reality. You're going to hear about the senseless slaughter of a thoroughly innocent and decent human being. You're going to learn throughout this trial a lot about the defendant, Monica Sementilli. Seated over here to your left. You're going to learn about her lies and deception. You're going to hear about her manipulation of her family, her friends, as well as her husband's friends and colleagues, her husband's family, who she was very close to over the years. You're going to hear about her extreme selfishness and ultimately the murder of Fabio Sementilli, her devoted husband of almost 20 years. The Sementillis bought a large, beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood in the San Fernando Valley, which you see here. This was actually the second home they bought in the San Fernando Valley. The family lived here on Queen Victoria Road in Woodland Hills for approximately 4 years prior to his death. They appeared to have a great life, the kind that most people would dream of. When not working or traveling for business, Bob would always sit on the back patio. You can see on the bottom right, there is a covered area. He would sit in that back area to relax. He had a TV out there, he had a fire pit, he worked out there, he held meetings out there, he posted to his professional social media posts to the industry out there. He would sit back there and he would relax. And one thing that Fabio loved to do when he sat back there, whether he was taking meetings or working, was he would love to sit back there and smoke cigars. And this is where he eventually was murdered. In February of 2017, he was going to celebrate his 20th wedding anniversary to the woman that he referred to as his queen. He often called her Pootsie. He talked about her all the time and their date nights to his friends and colleagues. He often would try to sneak out of the office early on times when he was not traveling on business so he could take her out to dinner. And he constantly called her during the day to check in with her, also when he was traveling for work. His 50th birthday was coming up. It was on the horizon, and he bought himself his dream car, a used Porsche Turbo. He was planning on driving the car up to Pebble Beach to play golf with a group of his close buddies for a weekend to celebrate. But he didn't get to do that. He was enjoying his life, and he was enjoying the fruits of his hard labor. However, as you're going to hear, none of this was enough for his wife, the defendant. You're going to hear that the defendant led a privileged life. She had an adoring husband who was a superstar in the beauty industry, a very unusual man. She didn't have to work. She previously had a few part-time jobs when they moved to the California area, but she handled the family's finances. She handled the family's schedules. As I said, they had 2 teenage daughters, and she had privileges that many of us don't have. She had a housekeeper. She had a guy who cleaned the pool. They had gardeners, and she seemed to enjoy spending her days cooking elaborate Italian meals, raising their teenage daughters, lunching with her friends, and doing pretty much whatever she wanted. She also enjoyed many of the benefits of Fabio's success. They went on expensive vacations to exotic locations that you're going to hear about, such as Hawaii, Cabo, or St. Thomas, as you see here. This here on the left, you can see is a photograph of Robert Baker with Sean McCullum at LA Fitness. Sean McCullum was another member of the league, and you're going to hear about him and his wife. Paula, in the background, you can see the defendant in black with red shoes talking on her cell phone. On the right is another picture of Robert Baker, the defendant's lover and co-conspirator in this case. In December of 2015, the defendant began to take racquetball lessons from Baker. They exchanged emails December 1st, which you see here. This is approximately when they first met. And you can see the exchange where the defendant says, "Hi, it's Monica. I know you said league starts in January. Can I get lessons? Let me know if you're available. What are the rates?" And she flirts with him a little bit, "Looking forward to kicking my trainer's butt. LOL, Monica Sementilli." And the defendant says he's available for lessons anytime, and he sends her his cell phone number. This is a cell phone number you're going to hear about over and over again. You may want to jot it down. It wasn't long after this email exchange before the defendant and Robert Baker were sexually involved. Their affair began very soon after these communications. The defendant obviously believed Baker was exciting, although he had no money, no prospects for success. And you're going to hear that at this point, the defendant began living two lives, two very separate lives simultaneously. Eventually, the defendant, she decided she would rather live the more exciting new life with Baker that she was creating, which was completely different than her role as a wife and mother. So who is Robert Baker? And you've heard about him during jury selection. As I said, he was the racquetball coach and coordinator at LA Fitness. Years ago, he was in the Army. You're going to hear from 2015 to 2017, he lived in an apartment in Woodland Hills with another man. This was located at 6817 Independence Avenue, apartment 110 in Canoga Park. You're going to hear a lot about that location. That location was approximately 4 miles from the Sementilli home on Queen Victoria. You're also going to hear that Robert Baker was a registered sex offender, and that this stemmed from a series of 1993 convictions for lewd and lascivious acts with a child under 14. You can see here I've listed the counts: unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor, continuing sexual intercourse with a child, oral copulation and sodomy. You're going to learn that the victim in this case was actually his stepdaughter from a prior marriage.
Woo, there was a lot there, wasn't there? This lady allegedly living this double life. The man she chooses to have the affair with is apparently a sex offender. What more is to come? A whole lot. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of the celebrity stylist trial. And we're watching the courtroom in West Virginia, the case set to resume in the Ponzi scheme murder trial. Don't go anywhere. This is Court TV Live. We are your front row seat to justice.
I feel like I hold one of the key positions in the industry for hairdressers. And with that comes a lot of responsibility.
That was the victim in the case that we're following for you in California. We're calling it the celebrity stylist murder trial. That was famous Hollywood hairstylist Fabio Sementilli. He was murdered. And now the defendant, his wife, is accused of carrying out that murder with some help. She's accused of conspiring with 2 others. Prosecutors say her motivation was some big insurance policy payouts. They say lust and greed, basically, are how we got here. Let's go back in and watch more. We've extracted the very best moments. And when I say this is a salacious case, oh, that's an understatement. Take a look.
But they became obsessed with each other. They believed they were soulmates. You're going to see some writings indicating this. You're going to hear some recordings indicating this, and that they were destined to be together. You're going to hear that the defendant is a compulsive liar, just like Robert Baker, as she tried to maintain these completely different, these 2 separate lives. One with her family that included Fabio and her daughters, and the more exciting one that she was creating with Baker every time Fabio was at work or was traveling out of town on business. And you're going to learn that she enjoyed the risk of living this double life. Photograph on the right is obviously a photograph of them out at a restaurant. The photograph on the left, if you've ever FaceTimed anybody, you can see Baker, it looks like he's not wearing a shirt, and they are FaceTiming one another and recording it. You're also going to hear that the defendant sent over 300 videos and photographs, which included hundreds of naked photos of herself to Baker during the course of their affair. And while you're not going to see that evidence, because of its salacious or obscene nature that can't be brought into court, you're going to hear a detailed description of that evidence from various LAPD detectives who investigated this case over the years, including retired detective Mitzi Roberts. These photos and videos were recovered after their arrest from the defendant's iCloud account Not only was the defendant having an affair with Baker, but they were also swinging with other people. Some of you might be too young to remember what that word even means. But they were swinging with other people, meaning that they were having sex with other individuals as groups or three-ways, that the defendant was having sex with other men while Baker watched, sometimes over Skype, and that a lot of those photographs were also found in her iCloud account or in Baker's Dropbox, or both. You're going to hear they used a specific website for this Lifestyle Lounge, an explicit swinger website, in order to communicate with third parties and set up dates for group sex. You're going to hear that Lifestyle Lounge allows individuals and couples to register social style accounts in order to meet one another across the country. You're going to hear that over 1,500 log entries were found on the defendant's iPhone web history between July 2nd of 2016 and July 13th, 2017 for this particular website. You're also going to hear that additional entries were found on her tablet. In the middle of her affair on February 8th of 2016, this is at about 9:53 p.m., the defendant posted on Instagram. She posted a photo that you don't see here of herself and Fabio from what appeared to be their wedding, with the caption that you see here, 19 years and counting. Because, of course, she's trying to maintain the appearance with her husband and family that she is still a devoted wife and mother. After an apparent date night with Fabio on February 12th of 2016 at 9:26, the defendant posted another photo of herself and Fabio with glasses of wine and this caption that you see here. Later that same night, after her date night with her husband, she sent a nude selfie of herself to Baker. As the defendant was living these two separate lives, she continued to socialize with her friends, including Elise and Faye, who knew nothing about the affair. This is a photo that was taken February 20th of 2016 at approximately 7:23 p.m. What you don't see here is that later that same evening at approximately 9 p.m., the defendant is at Baker's apartment. And the reason that we know that is because there are naked pictures. And the defendant sent multiple nude photos of herself earlier on this same day from her home. You can see from the background in those photos to Baker. There's also a naked picture of the defendant later that night, as I said, at around 9 p.m. Of the defendant at Baker's apartment, found on Baker's Dropbox. On one of the occasions when Fabio was out of town, the defendant had Baker stay over at the family home. That's while her two teenage daughters were also there, and she got caught. Her older daughter, Jessica, who you'll hear from, found Baker sleeping in the defendant's bed one morning. And the defendant lied to her, convinced her that although Baker had slept over, she herself had slept in a separate room along with Sheila Salahian because they all had too much to drink the night before and couldn't drive. And of course, this was a complete fabrication. And as you'll hear from Sheila, she never slept over. She would never have been over at Monica's house, of course, without her husband, Ricardo. And so, of course, we know the defendant slept with the defendant in her bed. Beyond the fact that, again, as I'm starting to show you some of the lies that she told to her family, she also used her daughter because she made her daughter promise not to tell Fabio when he came back from business that Baker had slept over, so that she's therefore teaching her daughter to lie.
I'm surprised I'm not hearing some objections here, because there's an awful lot of arguing going on in this opening statement. Statements. your statement of your case, not arguing every fact of your case. I don't know what's going on with these California prosecutors. We were talking about it earlier with the ASAP Rocky case. Now we're seeing it again. And by the way, those two trials are happening in the same courthouse in LA County. Let's bring in our guests and let's talk about all of this and the salacious details in this case. I want to welcome in law enforcement expert Sonny Slaughter, and still with me from opening statements, attorney Tommy Pope, who is also a retired SLED agent and a state lawmaker, and according to Kirk Nermi, ought to get into criminal defense work too. He does some civil work, and Kirk thinks you would be great. I saw him just tweeting about it moments ago. So welcome to you both. I'm so happy I have you too. So let's start. I think let's start a little bit with the arguing that we're seeing going on with this lawyer. I mean, essentially, not mincing words. I mean, she's not hinting at what she thinks Monica Sementilli is. She said she's a compulsive liar. Tommy, are you surprised we're not seeing the other side objecting?
I was wondering, you know, did they have some motions in limine, some pretrial hearings, and, you know, what would come in and what would not? Because, you know, I gave you my preview of coming attractions. I said, they got me full in this movie. You know, there's intrigue and nude photos, and, you know, you go out to dinner and then send the other guy photos, and she's not charged with that crime, unfortunately, but I think it's a pretty good character assassination on the defendant from Jump Street. So I am with you. I don't know, again, what hearings, for your viewers, what hearings were held outside the presence of the jury, but it's coming in pretty strong. I think in a strange way now, she's got a hole to dig out of. You know, we got another person who's labeled as a liar and a cheat, and she's going to have to deal with it.
Right, Tommy. She's got lots of labels here. And with this prosecutor, by the way, you guys, she's still not done with her opening statement. She started it on Friday, went all day. She's supposed to resume the open. I can't. But let's dig into the details. Sonny Slaughter, this is where I want to go to you, please. The details that law enforcement uncovered in this one are just head-spinning details. The prosecutor saying that it was essentially lust and greed that led to this. I'm curious your assessment as you're looking at the facts of this case and the charging that was done ultimately. Monica Sementilli, her lover, and the other individual.
You know, when, good morning, Julie and Tommy. I love both of you. I was watching earlier, and you guys were great. You know, one of the things that I was thinking about as I knew we were going to talk about this case is the job of law enforcement. And when do we have these type of cases? Notice this case happened in 2017, and we are already in 2025. And what law enforcement has to do to connect the dots in order for this type of prosecution to move forward, they have to be meticulous, sound, and really on point with how they gather information and put together the information so detailed that the prosecution can bring a case like this forward when you're talking about money, lust, and greed. Because although those things are very salacious, we always have to remember that there is a victim and that there has been a murder. And ultimately, that is what law enforcement is investigating, a murder, a crime. And all of these other things are a part of the criminal activity, but they are not actually the activity that law enforcement must investigate. There was a murder, and that's what they have to put together. The rest of this stuff comes in as the filler for the criminal activity.
Sonny, thank you for all of that. Really important point. We see the end result, right? When we cover trials, that's what Court TV does, bringing you into the courtroom. But yet, when you think about all of the hours, all of the manpower it takes just to get to what was the motive, what were the facts that led up to this, it is a Herculean effort, as you noted. A lot of people coming together to do really great work. And you both, you and Tommy have both served doing such great work, and we thank you for that.